Now, if you're following any trends on social media for floristry and flower arranging, you're going to really love this style. So stay with me. Welcome back again to another one of our tutorials. Now this week I'm going to look at using a very sustainable mechanic. So instead of floral foam, we're looking at chicken wire or wire netting. Now this would have been used before floral foam was invented in the 60s, and there's a huge resurgence at the moment for more sustainable and environmentally friendly designs. So I thought today we'd look at creating a design in a vintage Dartmouth pottery container. It's a very small, sweet little container, and I'm just going to use the wire netting as my mechanics to hold my flowers into place. Now what I've done is I've cut myself a length of the chicken wire. This has about an inch diameter in the gaps in the wire netting, and you can buy this at a hardware store, a DIY shop. You can probably get it in some local garden centres as well. And I folded it over on itself, so I've got roughly 3, maybe 4 layers. And what that will achieve is to prevent my flowers sliding about too much within the design. Because there are lots of layers, when I insert my flower stems in, they hopefully will stay in position. And I've made it big enough so that it fits quite comfortably in there, without me using any plastic tape or anything over the top to hold it in position. And under normal circumstances, this vase, this little container, would be filled with water. But because I want to tip it forward like this for you to see, I obviously don't want to have any water in there. So very small container, very delicate in its nature, and that in itself tells me the type of flowers that I want to put in this design. They need to be small and delicate and very simple. And I'm going to stick with a white shade of flowers. And I don't have any foliage for this one. So it really is a small selection of flowers that I've got left here that I know I'm not going to use in any other type of design. If you're following flower arranging on social media, we have a real resurgence for very historically inspired designs. So I'm hoping, judging by the flowers that I've got today, I'm going to create quite a lazy crescent, I think. Might turn into a Hogarth curve, but I think it's going to be quite a lazy crescent shape. I'm still going to roughly work on 1/3 and 2/3. So my arrangement on the top is going to be about twice the height and the width of my container. But what I'm going to do differently is I'm going to start at the centre and I'm going to work my way out. And I'm going to use the flowers in their natural shapes. I'm not going to try and force it into an outline shape like we've done before. So I'm not looking to create a perfect triangle or an L shape or a round shape. I'm going to let the flowers speak for themselves. But judging by the shapes of the flowers that I've got, I'm anticipating it's going to be somewhere along the line of a crescent shape. Now I have a single stem of white oriental lilies here, and used as the whole head is going to be really too large for the overall design. So I'm going to start by creating almost a focal point here towards the front. And by inserting the flower stems through that grid effect that I've created with the chicken wire, I'm going to start by making the focal point of my design with the larger flowers, and then I'm going to work my way towards the outside. So I'm just going to sit them alongside one another. You really need to be able to appreciate the different size heads, the different shapes of the heads, and the colours and the textures of the flowers. It's all about the individual characteristics of the flowers this time, rather than creating that overall impressive, large, symmetrical shape. So we have some beautiful white roses, and again, just going to weave these through. Now, if you do get caught, just like me here, just pull it back out again, cut it shorter and insert that flower head in. And I'm almost starting with the flowers sitting on the rim of my container. Just going to remove a bit of the petal there because it's a bit damaged. I'm not working at creating an overall shape. We're just looking at the flowers, seeing the way that they're shaped and the way that they're growing, and using them in the design for the best of their ability. Now I am grouping two of the roses together, and that's really because I want maximum impact from them. If we space them out on the outside of the design, we tend to get that almost headlight effect that I encourage you not to do each week. Now straight away, we've got some depth towards the front. My design isn't flat, and by placing the roses behind one another, it's drawing my eye towards the back. So my design isn't really flat. And that's my main focal flowers there in the front. I've got this small bud of the lily, and what I don't want to do with this is put it in this exact position here, because it's giving you that V sign, which is quite an unattractive shape in flower arranging. It sends your eye in two completely different directions. But to counterbalance, but to prevent your eye going off in those two directions, if I put it in sideways, now the two flowers are behind one another and you don't get that very angular position. So now they're alongside one another. If I just turn it round, let's just get that in the right position. Now the beauty of arranging with the wire netting is that you can take the flowers in and out as many times and you don't ruin the mechanics. So with floral foam, if you insert it in several times, you'll end up with gaps and holes. So what that hopefully is now achieving, and it depends which angle the camera is picking up the flower at, they are now, from the position I'm looking at, it's making your eye come over to the side rather than this position travel in two different directions. So I've just placed that slightly on its side, and it's a far better angled flower. And when you see this in a photo later on at the end, and you can see it in close-up detail, you'll appreciate it a little more. Now I have some very ordinary double chrysanthemums, a flower that you can pick up quite easily in the supermarket. And these are going to go in quite low down, and they're almost acting like a foliage. They're covering that wire netting. And if I turn this round in just a second, you'll see that I've got a real interesting variety in textures, and that's really important with a design that's all one colour. So we have almost a velvety appearance with the rose, a much fluffier appearance with the chrysanthemum there, smooth, almost polished look with the lily. So we have a variety of textures. When you're using one colour in a design, you need to be careful that the textures don't all blend into one another and they don't become too confusing and really quite complicated within a design. So now I'm making the most of the little chrysanthemums here to come towards the back. So we have colour brought through to the back. I have some depth, the three-dimensional effect that I always talk about. So if you're a bit limited to the flower choice that you have, you know you can make a lovely design with quite small stems of flowers. So now we're left with this centre part of my chrysanthemum, and they're very close together. There's a lot going on there in the flower head itself. So what I'm going to do is just remove one of the flowers, and that opens up the flower head straight away. By positioning this on its side, I think we'll go this side. I don't have that very strong shape head at the end, which is dominant and draws your eye to one side, but I have a more elegant shaped stem and a shaped flower for you to look at. So we've got a little bit of asymmetrical balance going on. The shape isn't the same on both sides, but I'm really trying to use the flower stems as they grow, and I'm not trying to force them into a position they don't want to go. Okay, so remembering it's a really small container. Now I have some of the snapdragons. Again, I think we probably used them in a design last week, but I don't want to throw them away because they're still in good quality. And these are going to work really well to give me that outline shape. And it's curved slightly, so it's going to help get the design longer and make your eye travel away and towards the outer edge. And now what we've also achieved is that lily, the bud of lily, that was almost a strange shape on this side, now has flower of a different shape, different texture again alongside it, and it's drawing your eye away from the very heavy centre of the design. Now another good point with the chicken wire, the wire netting, is that you only have a small area to fill, and once those holes are all filled in the wire netting, it's very hard to add any extra flowers in, so your design doesn't become too large and too dominant for its container. But working your way out from the inside is quite different to the designs that I've shown you in the past, because of course we've worked from the outside in, we've created the outline shape, and we've worked towards the centre. Now for me that has quite a Georgian inspired theme to it, and if you're interested in historical floral design, it is a fascinating topic to look at, and you can really get to understand how our floral design has evolved to where it is now. And these shorter pieces I'm just going to bring here towards the back, and if you could look down in the centre, I don't want to tip it forward because the placement of the flowers will move, but I don't have a huge gap left to keep adding lots more fresh flowers in there. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to introduce some pussy willow, and this again is going to help lengthen the design and make it more elegant as we travel away from the focal point. And this one naturally has a lovely curve to it, so I'm going to cut it down a bit shorter and make use of that again at the sides. Now because we're working in all one colour and it's just a white arrangement, I haven't got to worry too much about balancing the materials on either side. I don't have to worry about the colour balance on either side. But it's going to end up fairly asymmetrical, so it's going to be longer on one side than the other, which is fine, that looks really attractive. And I do have one pussy willow again, that has a gorgeous curve on it again. So this can come over. I've introduced now straight away another texture. We've got that fluffy look of the pussy willow, and if I bring that round we can see with just a minimal amount of flowers how we've achieved quite an attractive design. And this style of arranging is really fashionable at the moment in wedding bouquets. So it's often referred to as a boho style, but it has strong influences from historical designs from many years ago. And I'm a little bit of a shopaholic when it comes to vintage containers. I do like to source them when I'm in different shops to see what I can get hold of. Now at this stage, it's a very simple, sweet little design, so I don't want to add anything that's going to be too imposing or too overbearing in the design. But we have these beautiful seasonal catkins, and these are going to work really well to enhance that outline shape. So quite a therapeutic style of arranging this is. You haven't got to worry too much about creating those strong outline shapes that we've looked at before. This is a very mindful way of arranging. And if you're limited to what you can get hold of, it's a great way of arranging just a simple selection. Might be that you've made a design and that you've got a few flowers left. You just need a very small container to work this type of design. Now the catkins there are introducing again a lovely texture and a beautiful shape. It's a very different shape to the flowers that I have in the arrangement. And that's how it's coming together so far. Now I've got a little area here at the back which I'm going to fill in, and I think that design is almost finished. So what do we think? Is that something that you would like to see more of? It's very different to the style of arranging that we've done before. Now don't forget, if you're enjoying, please subscribe to the channel, hit that bell to be notified every time I upload a new design, and please ask some questions in the comment box below. I love to hear how you're all getting on and how you're enjoying the tutorials, what parts of the world that you're coming from, and if there's anything that you want to see made. We've had a few suggestions so far and they've been added to the list of videos for later on in the year. But if there's anything you want to see or anything you don't understand, please let me know and we'll try and explain it in one of our video tutorials. So just at the back, just to finish it off, I'm going to use one or two of the smaller pieces of the Antirrhinum or the Snapdragon, and we're heading sort of in towards the spring here in the UK, so hopefully you'll be able to start getting some of these materials in the garden as well. But they are flowers that you could easily get hold of in the supermarket. And what I'm doing here is just using the small little heads of the chrysanthemums just to fill in the areas at the back. So you'll notice I haven't used any foliage at all in this design. It's just simple, delicate flowers, some pussy willows and some catkins from the garden. Now, if you can't get hold of foliage and you don't have access to greenery from your garden or from maybe friends or family, this is an ideal style to start with. So remember, start at the base and work your way out and really look at the different flower types, how they grow, which way they bend, and use them to their best advantage. So I hope you've enjoyed that one. Look forward to seeing you all in another tutorial very soon, and bye for now.